time, tea, and tenses. Notes from a non-native English teacher in Britain. Written by Shams Bhatti. When I first arrived in England, I believed English grammar was a system. I had studied it for years. I could explain the past perfect in 3 languages. I had a master's in English literature. I had a master's in Educational Technology and TESOL. Had methodology. I had a theory. I had assessment frameworks. I had PowerPoint animations explaining auxiliary verbs. Thought I understood English. Then I met living English. Suddenly, grammar was no longer a system, was a personality, raised eyebrow, a sentence that meant the opposite of what it said, a polite tone hiding emotional turbulence. I realized that English tenses were not simply about time. They were about attitude, understatement, and social instinct. It took me 2 years to understand that when a British colleague says, "That's interesting," it is not interesting. When they say, "We'll see," they will not see. When they say, "Not too bad," it could mean triumph or catastrophe. Context is everything. Tone is survival. After 23 years of teaching English, I now know this. Universities teach theory, methodology, technology, and rules. They do not teach how English behaves when it puts on a coat, waits its turn politely, and avoids directness at all costs. So I began watching tenses differently, not as structures, behavior, and slowly I realized British English does not describe time, negotiates it. Let me share what I have learned, not as a lesson, more as observations from a foreign teacher who now drinks tea voluntarily and understands sarcasm on most days. The present simple, the land of calm certainty. The present simple was the first tense that felt safe. It describes routines, habits, and facts. It sounds organized, sounds controlled, sounds British. I drink tea every morning. I work at the college. Manchester is rainy. These sentences feel reliable. They give the impression that life is under control, even when it is not. The third person S was my first cultural shock. He works. She drinks. That small letter carries enormous social weight. Like British politeness, it is tiny but compulsory. If you forget it, everyone notices. But nobody corrects you directly. They simply look mildly concerned, as though you have forgotten to apologize. In the classroom, this is where lower-level learners begin negotiations. They like the present continuous. Feels alive. The present simple feels like paperwork. Why must he works? They ask. I explain. They nod. Next sentence. He work every day. British grammar sighs politely and moves on. Subject-verb agreement and singular plural control quietly attach themselves to this tense. They arrive together like relatives who were not invited but must be accommodated. The present continuous, performing productivity. Then I discovered The present continuous. Form. Am is are plus ing. I am writing. She is cooking. Straightforward in theory. Socially fascinating in practice. British people use this tense to appear busy. I'm working on it. I'm just finishing something. We're discussing it. Sometimes nothing is happening at all. But grammatically, the activity has been announced. Masterpiece of polite illusion. Learners adore this tense. Feels logical. It moves. It does not require third-person s, which already makes it popular. They use it generously. Thy living in Manchester. She is have 2 brothers. We are like football. The present continuous becomes the universal tense. Past, present, future, dream, ambition, and mild confusion. Meanwhile, the other tenses wait patiently, like well-trained British citizens in a queue, hoping their turn will come. The past simple, the honest historian. The past simple is refreshingly direct. Something happened. It ended. We move on. No emotional aftercare. I visited London. She called yesterday. They finished the project. It comes with time expressions. Yesterday, last year, in 2019, when I still believed British humour was accidental. Then arrives the auxiliary. Did. Did you go? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. And immediately, verb form confusion politely enters. Did you went? Did he ate? Did they saw? At this point, every non-native teacher smiles gently and repeats, verb 1 after did. Always verb 1. The simple rule, learnt weekly, forgotten daily, stable tradition. The past continuous, the background drama. The past continuous paints scenes. I was walking home when it started to rain. Naturally, they were arguing when the manager arrived. She was trying to explain, but nobody was listening. This tense requires context, a background action, a second event, a storyline. Without a narrative, it floats politely in mid-air. I was eating. Why? When? What happened next? English grammar here behaves like British storytelling. Something must happen, preferably something awkward. For non-native learners, this tense is challenging because it asks for imagination, not just rules. Once they understand that grammar sometimes needs a story, progress begins. Slowly, with encouragement. T, the present perfect, where foreign teachers practice humility. Form, have, has, plus past participle. I have eaten. She has arrived. We have finished. Elegant, deceptive, philosophical. This tense connects past actions to present relevance. I have lived here for 10 years. Still here, still learning British humour. I have lost my keys. Past mistake. Present crisis. Learners ask, why not past simple? I explain. They nod. Next sentence. I have went to London yesterday. British grammar politely pretends not to hear. Only the auxiliary changes, have and has. Everything else remains still. A very British approach to drama. Minimal movement, maximum implication. The past perfect, the grammar of regret. Form had plus past participle. I had prepared the lesson, but the projector had stopped working. This tense looks back to a past moment, then further back to identify the precise point at which optimism collapsed. It also introduces another familiar struggle. If I had knew, if I had went, every teacher replies softly. If I had known, the learner nods kindly. The error returns next week. Consistency is important in British culture. Modal verbs, the polite troublemakers. Then there are modal verbs, the only verbs that refuse to behave. No says, no to, no tense endings, no cooperation. He can swim, she must go. They should arrive soon. Simple in appearance, socially complex. Modals express ability, obligation, probability, permission, and polite suggestion, which in British culture is where meaning becomes delicate. You must come to my house sometime. This is not an order, it is politeness. Attendance optional. You might want to reconsider. This is not advice. It is a warning. Learners ask why modals do not change form. I tell them British grammar avoids unnecessary effort. A national philosophy, the future. Hope with polite uncertainty. Talking about the future in Britain is sensitive. Too much certainty sounds arrogant. Too little sounds unreliable. English, therefore, provides choices. Will for predictions and promises. I will send it later. Later remains undefined for strategic flexibility. Going to for plans. I'm going to start exercising. Gym membership achieved. Exercise pending. Present continuous for arranged plans. We're meeting tomorrow, subject to weather, transport, and fate. And finally, the ultimate British future tense. We'll see. Meaning no, but politely. Why tenses matter more than grammar books admit. After 23 years of teaching, I no longer see tenses as forms. They control the language. When tense slips, subject-verb agreement slips with it. Singular and plural lose discipline. Modal logic disappears. Verb forms wander. Auxiliaries carry the sentence like quiet, overworked assistants. Run-on sentences appear like distant cousins who arrived early and will not leave. Yet when learners begin to control tenses, something changes. Sentences stand straighter. Meaning sharpens. Confidence grows. English stops sounding translated and begins sounding lived. Grammar is not cold. It is social intelligence written down. A final observation from the outsider who now understands mostly. When I first came to England, I knew Shakespeare, Wordsworth, the Bronte sisters, and the Queen. I expected poetry. I found understatement. I expected dramatic emotion. I found a bit tricky. I expected directness. Found we'll see. I discovered that British English hides its feelings in grammar, in auxiliaries, modals, in tenses, tiny shifts of time that carry enormous social meaning. There is also tea, always tea, not merely a drink, but a rhythm of life. In Britain, tea is pause, patience, politeness, and permission to speak without urgency. Afternoon tea is not about thirst. It is about time shared, problems softened, and words chosen carefully. It is a quiet ritual that shapes how conversation flows and how disagreement hides inside kindness. Coming from Pakistan, I recognize tea differently. It arrived there through British colonial trade, traveled across oceans, and settled into our daily lives. It became ours, yet its origins whisper of Britain. In that sense, tea and English traveled side by side. Both crossed borders, both reshaped identities, and both became part of who we are. Somewhere along the way, as I learned to understand British humour and British grammar, I also learned to drink tea without thinking about it. That is perhaps when I realized the transformation was complete. Language, culture, and habit had quietly infused, like tea leaves slowly coloring water. And I, the foreign teacher who once taught grammar charts with confidence, now smile when someone says, "I've just sent it," and know it could mean any moment between now and last Tuesday. But I nod politely, because now I understand. Mostly copyright, Shams Bhatti, 2026. All rights reserved. Reproduction or distribution of this work in any form is prohibited without prior written permission of the author, except for brief quotations with acknowledgement.